Hey YouTubers, welcome to DidgieTalks. We all have a good review, right? But if like me you want to know what it's like to actually live with something, then my Living With series has got you covered. Today we're talking about living with a Tesla. Hey YouTubers, welcome to DidgieTalks and episode number 2 in my series of living with an electric vehicle. In this episode I want to talk about range and range anxiety. There's a lot of myths out there, there's a lot of banter out there, and I just wanted to share with you my own experience. By the way, if you can hear some snoring in the background, that's just Freddie the Bulldog asleep at my feet. I do videos on Freddie the Bulldog, and there is a dog mode on Tesla, but that's for another day. So I do suffer a fair amount of banter from my buddies who ask whether or not I'm going to get to my destination and back without having to change the batteries, or if I do have to make a charge, what am I going to do for the couple of hours it takes to top up the tank? First thing I want to stress is that most of this banter comes from my 40 and 50 something buddies who are driving souped up saloons with sports exhausts, pumping out all sorts of pollution in terms of noise and gases. These guys are probably going through a little crisis of their own, and I consider myself a really good friend. So I'm happy to support them through that crisis, inform them the best I can, and I'm pretty sure they'll come to their senses at some point. Anyway, now that's out of the way, just getting back to the facts. The average UK driver does around about 7,250 miles per year, which equates to around about 140 miles per week. If you look at the cars on the market today and those coming out over the next few years, they'll pretty much all do 200 miles on a single charge. So your average driver should be able to get a full week's worth of driving out of a single charge. Now, we definitely don't all fall into that average driver category. In my first year of owning an EV, I did 17,000 miles, and in that time I did do a few trips that were much longer than the range the car is capable of in one go. But let me give you one example. So I had to go to Leeds and back for a meeting. It's about 150 miles in each direction, so I knew that I'd have to take a charge somewhere. So in this case, what I did was I made sure that I had the superchargers mapped out, and the car would do that for me automatically anyway, but I just wanted to know where I was going to be going and what I was going to be doing. And in my example, I also had a stopover. My meeting was very early in the morning, so I actually went up the night before. So the drive up there, I didn't need to stop for a charge. I stayed at a hotel that had complimentary charging, so I just parked in an EV space, put the car in charge, and went to bed. And when I got up the next day, I still had a full tank, another 300 miles in the tank. I drove to my meeting, I did all the bits and pieces I needed to do, and then I got home, and then I plugged in again when I got home. So even on a journey where we were at the upper limits of what the car would do on a single trip, in this particular example, it wasn't an issue because I had both superchargers mapped in and a destination charger when I got to the hotel. So in both cases, I was pretty much covered. Now, for most of us, we don't have the luxury of being able to stay over, and we may need to do a long journey. And so really it comes back to that point of really plugging in your journey into your sat nav, making sure you know where your destination chargers are, your superchargers, where your service stations are. Pretty much all of these places will have an EV charger of some sort. And if, for example, it's a 300-mile journey as I described, then you really only need a top up. You're not going to give the tank a full blast. So actually, you're probably going to be sitting around for about 15 or 20 minutes while you do that. And in most cases, if you're on a 300-mile drive, you're going to want to stop, take a comfort break, grab a coffee, and this is about how long it takes you to get enough charge in your tank to get you back to where you're going. The other thing I've learned over that time is that actually there's charging infrastructure all over the place. There are new charging ports popping up weekly, if not daily. They're popping up at hotels, restaurants, inns, pubs, service stations, petrol stations. They're really just popping up all over the place. So actually, it would be difficult to do a journey like that without actually driving pretty much straight past a charger somewhere. The infrastructure is a lot better than people make out, or at least in my experience. So range and range anxiety is really just one of those things that exists in the minds of people that haven't had an electric car, haven't had the opportunity to see what it's like to live with one, and really probably don't know enough about what's going on. Let's say I needed to go to Edinburgh in Scotland, which is in a different country. So that's about 340 miles and about 7 hours of driving in each direction. Well, I have plugged it into my sat nav, I plugged it into the Tesla route planner, and I would pass 3 or 4 superchargers on the way, all free for me to use. And incidentally, if you are buying a Tesla vehicle, then please feel free to use my referral code and you'll get free mileage too. Not only would I be passing superchargers, but I'd be passing countless destination and third-party chargers. there isn't a single point along that journey where there's a gap which would cause me any concern or any range anxiety whatsoever. I'd probably have to stop at least twice on the way up there, and in a 7-hour drive, that's not unusual, and I'd probably have to stop at least twice on the way back. And again, I'm pretty sure after 7 hours of driving, I'll be exhausted. So I would stop a couple of times just to make sure that I was fresh, make sure the car was charged, make sure that I was fed and watered. So again, it really wouldn't make much difference whether I was driving an electric vehicle or driving an ICE. I'd have to do a long journey, I'd have to stop, I'd have to make sure I'm alert and aware. And yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I may need to stay a little bit longer at a service station because I'm taking a charge rather than filling up with fuel. But if you use that time wisely, you can make sure you're properly rested and fed and watered, and actually you will return to your destination fresher as a result. The other thing I would look for is, in a journey like that, it's unlikely you'd be doing it in one day. So I'd just be looking for a hotel that covers EV charging as complimentary. And so I'd be getting a free charge at my destination point. By the way, because I'm lucky enough to own a Tesla, probably around about 70 or 80% of that journey would be carried out on autopilot, which means that on the motorways, the car would be keeping lane, it would be keeping distance from the cars in front, it would be taking care of me. So actually, I'd arrive at my destination probably more refreshed and probably more aware than if I was driving your standard car. I will cover technology and all the benefits associated with owning an electric vehicle, and in my case the Tesla, in another series. So in summary, range anxiety. What range anxiety? Even with the EVs on the market today, the shortest range is pretty much covering your average driver's weekly consumption. And if it doesn't cover that, then let's not forget you plug your car in when you get home. If you have a full tank every morning, you really don't think about range very much. It's not something that even crosses my mind unless I know I've got a really long journey. And if you're planning a really long journey, then you're usually planning it and spending some time looking at what you're going to be doing anyway. So what does it hurt to really just look at where the charging points are along the way? The infrastructure is out there. It really is growing all the time. I know that Shell, for example, have talked about rolling out electric chargers at all of their stations across Europe over the next 2 or 3 years. And they've already started to do so. One quite local to me already has a charger in it. So this is already taking shape, and I think you'll find this for all the other petrol stations all up and down the country. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I know I haven't covered every angle possible in terms of electric vehicles and range anxiety, but that's my experience. Let me know if you like that. Let me know if it covers the things you wanted me to cover. If there is something else you want me to talk about, please make a comment and let me know, and I'll make a video on it. I hope this has been useful. If it has, please remember to like, please remember to share, and please remember to subscribe and catch the videos as they're released. Thanks very much for listening, and take care.